When we think of addictions, I've talked about President Obama being addicted to government. Well, over at MSNBC, Chris Hayes says we're addicted to oil. Okay? Chris Hayes, yeah, he's on MSNBC. It's a network. And he has a show. And he was talking about America's addiction to oil and politicians who go drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. And in order to sell this kind of addiction, see, all I have to do really is point at President Obama, the amount of spending, how we're going to have our deficit return to rising levels in 2015, how we've had trillion-dollar deficits. We've increased the size of the welfare state through food stamps, through lowering barriers or standards for qualifications for those programs. There are over 170 programs dedicated to assisting those in poverty and who are people in need, federal programs, and the amount of funding and the expansion of the welfare state as we know it through the redistributive arm of the government, because they can't create wealth. Remember that. That takes producers, the individual American citizens. No, they can only tax it away from our children, or they can take it from those who are successful in producing a product or good that people actually like. People using oftentimes their God-given gifts to maximize and make things better for the rest of the world in some way. And that said, it doesn't take me trying to sell something that is not, well, it's been called the greatest hoax on the American people. Who said that and who was right about that? That was Senator Jim Inhofe. He's also right about Benghazi, but I digress. Here is Chris Hayes talking about America's addiction to oil. Roll it.
If you're watching this right now, odds are close to 100% that you or someone you love deeply has wrestled with addiction. It's a brutal, wrenching thing to watch. I've seen it up close. You want to grab the person and shake them until they stop. But of course, that doesn't work. Our nation, our society is addicted to fossil fuel. Quite literally, we are dependent on it. We have a chemical dependency and we need to break it. Or we will raise the temperature of the earth so much it will invite massive risk of widespread catastrophe, disaster, and misery. In fact, if we are to avoid heating the planet past the 2-degree threshold the world has agreed is the outer limit to avoid the worst hazards of climate change, it is estimated we have to leave 80% of the current known fossil fuel reserves in the world in the ground. That's right. Trillions of dollars of crude oil, of tar sands oil, of coal, and natural gas, we have to leave it in the ground, abandon it there. In other words, we have to stop. And that is why a growing movement has come together to oppose the Keystone XL pipeline.
Okay, and we look at more of the studies and how there will be less emissions, greenhouse emissions, if you build it. It's so politicized, and we've talked about that, and I don't want to repeat it. Here's the point. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, fear. Now, I believe that you should be aware of things that are harmful, and obviously we are all environmentalists. I'm so ripping tired of those on the left trying to take that mantle. Oh, I'm an environmentalist. Look, I've hiked every other year with my dad throughout the United States in great places. Amazing. I just took a family trip blessed enough to take that this summer with my family. One of the greatest trips ever in the Green River. And I'm thinking to myself, how on earth are these people claiming to be environment? I love the environment just as much. I just understand dominion, and I also understand that consensus science is not consensus. Science is not politics, but it has become politics. I also recognize that Man Bear Pig himself, Al Gore, is a serial exaggerator, and he can't face an interview that would actually call him out on much of his stew, bunny style, that he puts out. And Flem McClear could really ask him a few questions and dismantle his whole argument with the hockey stick graph and man-made global warming. That's what we're talking about, man-made global warming and the causation between temperatures rising and CO2 levels. And that actually, we've seen the Earth's temperature flatline. Now, obviously, overall, there's a warming trend, but we've seen those trends before. What really bothers me is We're getting hit by some weather that is, quite frankly, not unprecedented. Shoveling today, big time. It's not unprecedented. It happened. But we're trying to create this boogeyman known as global warming. Mark Morano, Climate Depot himself, a man you've heard through the great Chris Woodward's reports right here on American Family News, spoke to the issue of global warming and, well, the weather being blamed on climate change / global warming. Roll it.
Yes, they are. I mean, basically, global warming causes less snow, except when global warming causes more snow. And it causes less cold, except when it causes more cold. They've completely flipped on this. A few years ago, in fact, it was 2011, Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, a bunch of Democratic senators took to the Senate floor and talked about the snow, the lack of snow that winter as proof of man-made global warming. Every heat wave is used as proof of global warming. But now we have record cold, record snow. The East Coast may see one of the snowiest decades now since the 1960s, exceeding the 1960s. And the new theory is bundle up, it's global warming.
So, again, you have that. He continued. I love this. Roll it.
It's global weirding now, and they're trying to say, oh, this is unusual weather. And they had the worst PR offensive this week. They're trying to claim it's, again, one of the hottest years on record globally, not just in the United States. The problem is it's a fancy way of saying that there's been no global warming for at least 15 years because they're arguing about hundredths of a degree beyond what they can even measure between these years. It's the silliest argument that even NASA has said aren't important, but the media jumps all over it. They keep trying to say the Earth is heating up when it's not. Every high school kid has not experienced global warming. All elementary school kids have experienced a slight global cooling in their lifetime. That's how bad it's become. So of course they're going to switch. They've gone beyond cold weather as proof of global warming. They're now saying increase in crime, rape statistics. They're using everything's prostitution. They're trying to throw everything in the mix, saying if they get worse, that's because of global warming. And there's actually academics doing real studies on this stuff. This has ceased to become a science. There's no way to falsify their claims anymore.
And that was, of course, last week with Mark Morano commenting. So that's when he said last week. So it was a couple weeks ago when he referred to those comments. I want to do something that the left often does with global warming. And I think this is it. If you really want to look at why there are problems, and a lot of times there are struggles that America that we are seeing, it's not global warming. No. It's our culture, and it's the breakdown of the American family. That one you could actually apply to a whole host of social ills. And that's why it seems to me bizarre that people like me could be called flat earthers, or people that don't understand, hey, it's an economic problem, Crane. It's not a cultural problem. No, it's a cultural problem. It's a cultural problem that's raised with the idea that there are not consequences when you give something and you encourage and incentivize dependence. It's a cultural problem when you don't recognize that when daddy goes, the state makes an awful replacement. It's a cultural problem when we don't realize that, or we equate women's health and the idea of defending a woman's health with killing the baby inside the woman, and not recognizing the impact that not only has on the dead child, but also the woman, the mother of that child. It's the idea that you can stand up and say, I support marriage between a man and a woman, and not want to go burn a small tea or dress up in some beret and military fatigues with sunglasses, or carry around ridiculously hateful, quite frankly, just stupid, moronic, idiotic signs shouting at people, because nobody really is going to ever listen to you, because you can't really draw a lot of support. So what you are is part of a hate freak show. So that's pretty much, I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's ridiculous that the fact that somehow somebody has to apologize for saying, yes, I believe this is sinful behavior. That doesn't mean I hate the sinner, or I think I'm better than the sinner in the eyes of God. The only thing that separates me from my sin is the blood of Jesus. It's absurd. It's absurd that some group that actually stands up for marriage and the beauty and the design Come on, husbands, you know what I'm talking about. The amazing gift of marriage that we have, and seeing that in our wives, and wives occasionally seeing that in their husbands. I joke, but sincerely, because it's something that you recognize the beauty of it. You recognize that when you are blessed enough, whether you've inherited the kids, adopted the kids, or had the children, what you have done is you've gotten a taste, just a small smidgen of what God has done with us in creating us. And it's amazing, and it's awesome in the truest sense of the word. Yeah, it's absurd that we sit back and we say, okay, well, blame global warming and causation where we can't, or even correlation when we can't, because it's been flatlining and your little hockey stick graph didn't work out so well and you had to suppress emails and you had a scandal there. But hey, remember, it's consensus, and then you look at the actual people of the 90% statistic and you realize it's 32% of scientists that actually do this, and when you have science, you either prove a hypothesis or not. I don't mean to keep going on, but I am so tired of demonizing a resource like oil. I like oil. I like cheap gas prices. I want more of that. I want more resources. I want things to work. You know why we're addicted to these things? Because they work.